Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. This video is a course for creating a React Native application, and we will be doing the homepage of Instagram. First, I will be creating an application, and with me I will show you how to do it. This course is for beginners or people who recently just known React Native. As you will see in this course, I am using extensions of Visual Studio Code, autocomplete, auto format code, and React Native snippets. I use this for saving time and for accuracy of code, because sometimes a misspell can make issues, especially for people who already started React Native recently. Let's delete this code and write the snippets for functional React component. RNFES and press tab to the component will be there with the style and everything. We just edit it. Now I am creating a view for the header. It will have text on the left, and on the right it will have 3 icons. And we will use style outside, not inline style, and we give it a name. As you can see, our text are shown in the state bar, so we need to import safe area view and use it. So let's import it from React Native and warp our component with it. Once we save it, as you can see, it's already in the safe area. Next, we will import dimensions. You can import it from React Native, and if you put the mouse on it, you can find the code which will give you the width and height of the screen. Using the width and height of the screen to give specific heights and widths to a component will make it responsive and in all kind of screens. The ratio of height and width to all component relatively to the screen of the device will always be the same. And now let's use the width and give our header a full width. You can always use the background color to check the width and height of your component and its dimensions. So by giving red color to this component, I can see how high it is and its width. Now let's remove this background color and we go continue on our component. First, we will need to have 3 icons, and to do that I need to install React Native vector icons. For installing React Native vector icons, I will put a video. I have an old video of how to install it in iOS. I will put the link to it, and for Android, by the end of this video, I will show you how to add it to Android. We import the icon from React Native vector icons, and let's create our first icon. You can copy this code also from the vector icons page. I will also put the link in the description. You don't have to rewrite each code, but you need to rewrite it so you can use to it and get less mistakes later. I did a mistake here. I mistakenly added one letter, so we just fix it. Let's copy our icon and import it down. Let's also write the and design which I imported the icon from. Now we pass our icon. Now we have our text and our icon, but because view is by default is column, we need to change this. If you, for any view in the React component or touchable opacity or other stuff, it always column. So you need to give it a flex direction row, so it will be in a row. This is very important, and we'll be using it with any component that we need to have in a row. Next, let's add padding. Now we use justify content and we give it space between. This will make the two components each one go in each side, and all the extra space will be between them, and this is what we want. Get align item center. This is for if we have two items and one is taller than another, so we need to align them in center, so the position of them will be always in front of each other. Let's import touchable opacity. Touchable opacity is a clickable component like view, and we use it with icons instead of buttons. If you want to use an icon and want to have a function on that icon, so we use touchable opacity. As you can see, it can be touched, and we can also test it by adding a function to it. To use a function, we can use onPress, and we can try with console log. As you can see, I am using snippets for React Native, so I write CLO and press tab, and it writes the full code for console log. Use it also with use state and other stuff. Now let's check the console, and as you can see, each time we press a button, it console log the word chat. Let's add another icon, and now let's copy this code and just replace the icon name, because the code will be the same. Code is the same, but now we have C icon, but I misspelled it. I will just fix this, and now it's fixed, and now we have two icons and the title. Now let's add one more icon. Again, we copy the same code and we just replace the icon name. Now let's add the three icons together, because they will be next to each other, by putting them in one view. And the title will be alone, will be in the other side. As you can see, by putting the three icons in one view, it become together, but because view by default is column, they have become in a column. We have to change that back into fixed direction row. Now let's create a new style, and we copy our style and we give it fixed direction row. Once we give it fixed direction row, it will be horizontal, and now we need to, because the three icons are next to each other, we need to give padding or margin to the middle one by giving padding or horizontal padding or horizontal margin. You either give horizontal padding or horizontal margin, or you give right padding and left padding. But instead of writing two things, you just write one code and let's give horizontal margin horizontal. I just give the style, and it will be on inline style. Once we give it the style, as you can see, it have been a space between the three icons. The reason we don't give vertical or padding because we already give the main component a padding. Now let's change what console log return for each component, for each icon, so we can tell if it's working or not. Now I give each one a unique console. As you can see, whenever I press an icon, its function work and give what console have been logging. We'll not use function in this application, but in the next version, maybe we will add function and everything else. Next, let's give a style to the text we wrote. We'll call it title, header title, and let's give it a size. Let's give it a font size. Of 16, and let's give it a font weight. As you can see, we have from 100 to 900, and also bold or normal. Let's go with bold. Bold is 900. As you can see, our text have changed to what we want. Now almost our header component is finished. Maybe you can give it a border, a top and bottom border. Let's see the component by giving a background of red. This is our component, and for us it is good, it's already finished. Now we just add border on top and on down. For border we have the border option or border width, or we can give just the border top and the border bottom. So we'll use just border top and border bottom, and we'll give it a width of 0.2. Next, we are going to split our code by creating a functional component and taking the header code outside of the app component. Now we create a function called the header. We make an arrow function, and now we write the return code. It's the same as the app code. As you can see, we just copy our code, just cut it and paste it in our new function, and then for this function we call it inside the app function. Now inside the safe area view we write our function and we press save. As you can see, our function already been called inside the app, and we split our code so it's more organized. Now we will do one more thing. We will take this code outside of this page. So we'll start by creating a new file in our app, and we call it components. And in this file components, we create a file called header.js, and we go there. First, let's use our snippets to create a functional component. rnfes and press tab, and it will write the functional component. Now I just have to copy the header code inside my new function. We just replace our code with this one, and because all the style I used in app, I will copy it here because it's the same. the app function don't have inside, so I just cut it all and paste it in my new function. Now I should import our header here from our component file. Let's copy our source also, and as you can see, all imports in my app are here. You see my app refresh and is the same, but it is not actually. This is just because the auto formatter is adjusting the code. It shows that the app is refreshing, but it is not. It will only refresh when I save the code. Now here when I saved the changes, I got this error because now the app is already working right. Now I just import the header from the component file where I put my header component, and I need to pass it here. Let's first adjust our code. I know I have some things I didn't finish. We need to make sure that export and the import is the same. Now everything is working as great. Let me show you on the console. Our functions are working right, and we split our code into two files. From now on, we'll be working like this. First, we started by adjusting in the app.js code, but for the next component, we'll just create a new component. We don't have to write it in the app and then get it out. Now let's create a new file, and this will be our stories component. In the description, I will put some of the extensions I use and some of the snippets I use. This will be helpful and will make your code go faster. Now I am making the stories file, and let's import it here so we can see it once we do any change to the code. And let's test it by writing hello world. Oh, I forgot to import it here. Now let's add our stories. As you can see, now we can see hello world here. Now let's import our stories and let's create our component. First, this is the site we will get the data from, dummyib.io. You can create a free account here, and it will give you a fake backend where you can use the data in it so you can share. Here is a structure that we will use is the user, and we'll be fetching the users. As you can, by clicking the user, you can check their stories, but we'll not do the stories in this video. There is no auth here yet. Static API, this is the one we will use. There is also GraphQL if you know or if you want to use GraphQL. I will add a link and make video about this website, so how can you use it. And I will put the feature in it and everything that you would want to do. As you can see, this is the fetching code, and the code is written already, so you don't have to write it again. We'll just copy it. This is the state and the loading code, and this is the fetching code, and this is the Axios. So we'll need to install Axios on our laptop, on our project. Now I have just installed the Axios. Now let's bring the code that is in the website. We'll bring the input code first, so we can use the Axios. and we go back, we import the URL and base URL code and the code from the app, and I will show you now how to get the code for the app. We also import the states, copy the states, and we copy the use effect code, which is used to fetch the data in our app. Now the backend code is already now in our app, and let's check the data from this application. Now we will just import use state and use effect from React Native, because both are in the code that we got from the dummy API website. I will rewrite the use state code. By using use state and the snippet, I can just by pressing tab, it will write the code for me. This is easier. Instead of writing the code from the beginning, I will also add this into the details of the video. I will skip some of the video so we can go to make our component. Here I am making a conditional state by using if loading true, then I would want to return an empty view. So if the fetching data is not in the app, it should be returning this view. Let's add a text says loading in our text component, and let's see how it will look in our app. The app is not running now on the simulator. This happened due to installing Axios. After installing Axios, I need to rerun the app so it will work efficiently again. You run the app again, and now till the app gets ready, let's get our app code. We go into our dummy API website, and we go to account, and on the right you will generate a new code, or you can use the old code. I already generated a code today, so I will just use it, and I will go back and we add it in the app ID. By giving our app an ID, it means it will integrate with the backend, the dummy backend. Now the app working fine. Let's check our loading code. This loading will work when loading is true, so we just cancel this code, just comment it, and now the code will be true all the time. As you can see, our loading code is there. To check the data that we are getting from the backend, let's console the data that we put in the state, and we console it, and we open our console, and here is the data that's come from the backend. Okay, to check this data, I will create a file, and just because I'm using auto style, if I put the data in a file, it will be justified, so I can read it and it will be easier to read. Now let's from the console, let's copy the data and make sure to take the full array of data. You can also go to the website and check the structure of the data, but I am doing it here so it will be more clear to people who see this. Now once I press save, it adjusts itself. And now here is the data of the users. This is around 20 users. This is what the website gives. There's other option, you can get more, but for average user 20 is good. If we go back to the website, you can see that the preference of the website, it will show you how many it will give you, and that you can adjust it. But what we have already is good, so 20 users is good, or don't even more than good for this app. We can limit it, we can make pagination, we can do many things, but this is a bit more advanced. We can do that later on this app. As you can see, we have the email, we have the picture ID. We want the name and the picture. So now let's go and create our component. Next, let's start by importing the dimension code from React Native. We import dimension from React Native, and we can use the code given by the React Native itself for the height and width. Now this code will give us the height and width of the screen, which we will use in this device. Next, let's import activity indicator. This is a spinning indicator for loading instead of this text loading. We just import it. Let's remove it again. We import again. And if we comment our setting loading false, we can see it. As you can see, this is our loading indicator. Let's remove our console data. This is a view that will be shown when you have data. This is a view will be shown when the app is loading. We use loading in the component, so this is better. Sometimes the other component will load with its data, so this one should be only concerned by loading its own data. Now let's give the style to our component. Let's call it container, and in the style down, set our container. For the height of this component, we will build it based on the width. I make the height of this component based in the screen width because I need to create square component inside this component, which I will turn later into a circle by using border radius 50% of the height or the width, because it's a square of the component. Now let's give it the width of full width, and for height we need to give it based on the width, so let's give it 30% of the width. Now our component have been created. Let's give it a background color red to see how the component is really are. This is our component. Now its height is 30% of the screen width. When we do this, we will make each component inside have to be a square. We cannot make it based on width and height because the ratios of each mobile vary from one to another, so we need to base on only one, and width is more stable, and normally we put our component based on the width, not on the height of the device. Let's import scroll view, because we will having a scroll view, horizontal scroll view, which will have our component. Inside our container, let's import our scroll view. By default, scroll view are vertical, so we need to change them to horizontal. To do that, we just write horizontal and give it the property true. Now our scroll view is horizontal, but because we don't have any component, we cannot see it. So now we will go and create our first component inside the scroll view. We create a view, and now let's make it a style, and we'll make it an item container. We want just to give it one property, which is align item center, because we want the item to be aligned in center. Let's import touchable opacity and image component from React Native. Touchable opacity will give any component the ability to have a touch with an opacity once we press on it. So let's make a touchable opacity, and inside it let's import our image. Now our component is ready. Let's give the style to our image, and as we said, we'll make our height and width depend on the width. And to give it the square, to make it square, we need to give it both the same height or the same width. so we will give it percentage of the width. Now let's write our mapping function. We will write the data dot map, and we make two braces, and we structure our data into item, and each item will map it in one component. Now let's copy our code for the item and pass it in the map. This map will work inside the scroll view. I made a mistake here because the data comes from the backend is importing another array called data. So we should be writing data.data. If we go back to the backend, let's go to our file. You can see our data is equal data itself. So it's 2 times repeated. So we go here, I put it 2 times, and now our components are working. Now let's go give our image a style. First, let's give it, it will depend on the width and height. So we already give it a height of 30%. So we should give it something less than 20%. So we can give it height and width that equal to the width into 18% or 16%. So let's give the width into I think 18% would be good. And for height we'll give it the same. Now we have an image which is a square, because we need a circle, and to make a circle we need to make a square first. And let's pass our source for the image. We just write source and we give it URI that is given from the backend. So we'll pass the item dot let's check it back in the backend. We have dot picture. So when we pass item dot picture, it will give us it will pass a URL for the picture to the source of the image. Now once we press save, we see our component, but our component is vertical. Another mistake here, I should have put the item container inside the map code and not outside it. Now let's just copy it inside, and let's copy the rest of it. If I leave spaces, it gives me this error. Just move the extra space I give, and our code are working fine. Now we have an indicator. We need to remove it from the scroll view, and it's called show horizontal scroll view indicator. We give it false, and we scroll again, and we don't see it. Now our component is good. For the height of this app, we give it a height of 30%, but our component is 18%. Let's give a margin to our image. We making it 3, so we can give it maybe 6%. This is half the margin we are given. The width into 0.6, it's like giving it 6%. Now because we give it full margin, we have double margin on the right side, so we need to give it vertical margin and the right margin only. So we need to delete this. And we'll give the margin left to our item container. We already removed the margin from image, so it will only show the margin left for this. Now as you can see, we already have the margin left that we wanted. Now let's give a padding vertical to our component. Padding vertical means it will give a top padding and a bottom padding. If you use padding horizontal, it will give right and left. If you want to use right and left, you can use right and left only. If you want to use total padding, you can use it. This happens with padding and margin. Just save one line of code when you use horizontal and or vertical. To make our component look like a circle, we need to give it border radius is 50% of its height or width, and the height is 18%, so we need to give it 9%. So it will be the width into 9%. Just make sure the code is right. And now we have our circles and our story component ready. Now in our backend, we forgot to import our username. So under the image, we should be importing the name of each user. So let's make a text component under the image, and we will pass it the item.username. Let's go to our backend and check the spelling. Let's just copy it. Username with a capital N. As you can see, we just pass item.username. And now our names are here, but we didn't make a room for it while we're doing the style, so we need to adjust this. So let's go back here and give it a margin of 3% because we have one extra component. And now let's give it a margin of width into 3%. As you can see, we have taken the margin 3%, and our component that's down is free now. We can restyle it because we have extra space down. For the text style, let's first give it a smaller font so we can define or know what we will do with its style. Let's give it a style name. And we go down, write the name for our text, which will be the name for the user, and let's give it font size of 10, and let's see, perfect. By giving it a margin top, our component will go down. That's one way to do it. As you can see, now our component is ready, but there should be more better ways. I give it a margin of 6 pixels. We will come back to this later. For images, we need to give resize mode of cover. Normally in such apps you will be getting your app only will accept square photos, but if any photo, if it is not square, then it should be having the resize mode cover. Next, first let's give our map a key. We then give it that, and normally the key would be the item.id. In most cases it will always have most item would be having an ID. Now let's adjust our styling code. We will just give it new style. We'll give it margin vertical, and we will remove our the 6 margin top we gave to text. Now we give it a space between and go down. We don't want this anymore. Now it is doing it responsively because it will change with other devices. Let's go to our image and let's give it a border color. So let's give it a border width first of 2, and the border default color is black. We can change that. Let's try different color and see which one is good. can try blue color, and we can change it to red or green. Okay, we'll try red. Any color is good. It will depend on the design you have. As you can see, because it's touchable opacity, once we press it, we give us an opacity of 80. Now we're using the green color. Okay, let's stay with that. And let's create our new component, which will be the posts. We create a new file again, and inside it we write our snippets, RNFES, and we press tab and it will write our code. I will write the snippets I use, normally not much, but the thing is that I used a lot of the time, like use state, console log, and the thing that saves me a lot of time, like this code. Again, we will copy the dimensions and put it here, same steps. Just to save some time, we just copy some of the code and rewrite it again. Now here we go back to the documentation. As you can see, we used the users, but now we will use the posts. The posts is the images posted by different users. Now let's go here. I will make a video about this website, just to a simple explanation for how to use it and what each API is for. Now I will just go to my stories and I will just copy the backend code. I will later make a video for the backend, how to use this backend. I didn't see much to add because the code is already written, so there is no need to rewrite it from the beginning if you're really going to enter the website, so you just have to copy it. Now let's console log our data and let's see it in the console, and here's our data. No, this is our data is down. Still not working, so I need to restart my application. I have restarted my application. I had some issue with it. Now let's import our posts that we already have written, and we add it in the app.js file under our stories. Now our posts are imported. We need to go back and adjust our code. Because this code I already copied it, I didn't check it. Now let's import use state and import use effect. And we save. Let's see. Okay, activity indicator. We need to import activity indicator. I think that's all. We had an issue. We see the status bar is there and the app is working, but the issue we need to check. I'm commenting my last component to see where's the issue. So we'll just check it, close and open. Okay, we didn't import the Axios, so we come back here, we copy the Axios import and we import it back into our file. As you can see, our loading is still not given any style. Let's go back to our loading in the stories and let's give it, already our component is 30% of the width, so the loading will have the same. And for our activity indicator to be in the middle, we need to give it justify content center and align items center. This will make our activity indicator in the middle. As you can see, it was already working in the middle. Also, the loading component don't have the border bottom that the original component have, so we just copy it. And as you see, while we loading, the border is showing while loading. Now let's go back to our posts, and this is the new data we are getting from posts. We can do the same we did with users, and we just copy it into JS file, and it will be styled once I save it. I just need to commit, give me a minute. Till the end of the array, and in a new file, let's call it posts data. We will not use these files, I'm just putting there so you can see it and how the data will look like. We just write data equal or const data equal, it doesn't matter. We just need the structure. Also, this structure you can find in the website. This is a structure of one post. It will have an ID, image, likes, and it have its owner, which is a user. If you see the users, it's the same as owner. And now we have only the loading component, and our normal component is empty, so we need to start building our component. First, we will create a header. It will be similar to the header we made before, so we can copy some of the code, but let's not copy any code. Let's just import our icons. We'll need 2 icons. So let's just import our icons from React Native Icons. I am using ant design, so I will be using ant design. Let's go back to our header and let's copy those icons. Actually, I will be using the heart and the message icon again, so I will just copy them as it is. And let's go back, let's copy the other icon. Where is the chat icon? Yes, this one. And we put it here. Now I just need to use them. One more icon. And the third icon will be dots icon, but I misspelled it. Let me rewrite it again. As you can see, we have an error warning. The warning is showing my issue and it's related to my icon, so I will just adjust it. There is a website for icons. I will choose the ant design icon feature. Also my font, all the fonts icons is there. Also I will add it to the video description. Now we can use all these icons in making our first header for the posts component. Here we will use something different. We will not use the scroll view. We will use flat list. Flat list would already have its own scroll, and we will just copy the code given in the React Native documentation. Flat list is recommended if you're going to fetch a lot amount of data, and it's better than scroll view in this way. But scroll view still its usage. We will need it to use it, especially with the small stuff that you don't have to write a full flat list component. Let's just copy our code. Now we want to return this flat list. Let's just remove this data with our data and replace this with also our data. The extra data is because if you change your data, it will re-render your flat list. Now we need to copy the item code, and the item was also had been extracted from another code, so we need to this is the render item code and we don't need this. And all this we don't also need it. We don't need the on-press, nor the background, and also we don't need the text. We just need the item. And now let's make the item component. Let's just go here and go back to our code and copy the item component. Let's just write it. It's the same as writing a functional component. Just item equals two braces, and here we structure the item, and we then build our first component. Let's just make it a view, and let's just adjust the item capital. Now our components are here, but we cannot see it because we haven't passed any data. So let's pass data. Let's create a view inside the view. This will be the first component, which will be the header of the post. It will have the name and some icons. Also, it will have the photo of the user. Let's call it item header. Now let's create our component. First will be text, which will pass the item little user, the item little owner, little username. We can go check it back in our data. No, in our posts data. As you can see, it's item dot owner dot first name. Okay, we just copy the first name item dot owner, and we'll copy the first name because it have an N capital. Now we have put our list of names of our users. This is a list of the names that have posts already. So the post will put it later. Now let's import our touchable opacity, because within this touchable opacity we will use the photo of the user, and also the text would be having also touchable opacity, because if you want to go to the user page you need to press the text. Of course this will not be here now, but we'll add it in the next video. Now I have added the 3 dots that of the first icon, but it came in a vertical way. The header should be a row, so we give it a flex direction row. It is the same as we did with the original header of the page. Now our component have name and 3 dots, which will be the icon for our setting of this post. Now let's go add the image also of the user before the name. We put the image. The autocomplete also completes my code, so sometimes I have to adjust it. For here we need to put the source, which will be the URI, which will receive the owner picture. So let's just write the item little owner little picture. Right, and now also we have to give it style. If we don't use a style, it will may get the full width and height of the photo, and this is not what we want. We want a small screen, a small image. So we just go and pass the image, and let's give it width and height. And as we did with stories, we give the width based on width, also the height based on width. We can give it maybe a 9% of the width. It will depend. You can change if you think it's small. Also, when you check it with other screens, you will be much more. You will know how much more about this. I just missed a column here. Also, there is React Native responsive screen, a package which you can use, but I don't use it here. I will use it in another app. I'm just using the basics so you can see if you can what you can do with the basic, and later you can use packages and different things to add more features. As you can see, now we have our images, our names, and the icon. Now we need to style those. I need the name and the image on the left, and the icon on the right. Let's first give it padding. So we have our the right height of our header. I think we can also give padding relative to the width, and a 3% like our stories. We also can give it a number of 12. Both are okay, because this time we will not give our header any height, so it will be giving it will get the height of it will get from the component inside it, plus the padding or the margin will give it. Now we need to put the image and the text in one view, because we want to style it in a responsive way, but by adding both in one view it become vertical, so we need to give it a flex direction of row. This time I will do an inline style, because only I need one property for styling. Now let's go to the header and let's use the justify content space between. By using this code, it will put a space between our view, which contains the image and the name, and the 3 dots, which is the icon that will integrate with the post. So by just giving space around, space between, and our points are on the right and the name and the user on the left, and because we already gave it padding, our components are correct. Now let's give a touchable opacity to our image and to our text and to our icon, and every time I save I get this error. Just remove the extra space. Now let's make our image a circle by giving it width into half of the width that we already given it, and now our images are having circles. Let's just do this style down with the other styles. Let's call it username or user, that's fine, and let's just import our user, and we'll give it the fixed direction row. Now our code back to normal. Now next we need to give align item center. This will put the 2 items in center in the div. As you can see, the name is now aligned center relatively to the image, because both are in one view, and that view already aligning them center inside it. Now let's go to our text and give it a style. We need to get it a bit far from the image, so we're giving a padding right of 12, and we just leave it like that. Let's just padding left, not padding right. Now our code is ready, our header is ready. This is our header, our icon, and everything. Now the next will be the image. Let's write our image component. It's an image, and we already give an image style, so we need to give it another name. So style, we'll give it styles dot let's call it post, and we'll copy the style down. For this style, to make it square, we will give it a width of width and a height of width. by giving it both widths for height and width. Now our image will be a square. As you can see, there is a square between our component, and let's give it a resize mode cover so it will not show any white spaces in the image. And for the source of the image, let's just put the URI, and it will be the item.image, but we can go check it in our data. As you can see, not the picture, it will be the item.image. Now let's go back, write it, and press save. Now our post component images are ready, and we can scroll. Our flat lists are working fine, but our story is not scrolling with our flat list. We will do this, but later. Let's just first finish our component. After the image, we have another view which will have the likes icon, and also we have the comment on the post. Let's first start with the first one, which will be the footer. The footer will have two icons. We already have them ready. First is the heart icon. We just put him in curly braces and press. Now this is our first icon, and the second would be the chat icon. Let's just copy the icon code instead of rewriting it. I will just copy it without any spaces. Now we change just the code name, and we have the two icons, of course, because it's default, it's a column, so we need just to change it to flex direction raw. Now once we give it the flex direction raw, it is perfect. Now we're just giving it padding of 12 as we give our other component the header of the post. We could also give it align item center, because some icons may not have the same size, so for them to be horizontally center, you need to use align item center. Now let's go and give here margin right of 12 also. Try to have constant numbers when you're giving margin and everything, like margin padding. Try to make it all aligned, because even 1 pixel will make the style look, it may not look for most people, but for an expert he can tell that some pixels are not right, and if it's repeated, it's bad. Let's add our likes number. This will render our likes number from the data that came from backend, and we just right after it likes. As you can see, we have 43 likes. Also we need to give it padding, and we'll give the same number, 12. Now the likes and the icons start from the same, also the image of the header of the post. Make sure to have this numbers to be exactly the same. I will change to use padding horizontal 12, and the padding vertical I will change it to 6, because I'm getting double padding when I am because the icons have a padding 12, and this should have less padding. Now let's just change the likes and just see we have the text. Let's go back to our component, post, and text. Now our posts are ready, everything is great, the score is great, no problem with the code, no issues, no warning. The code should be pixel perfect now. maybe we can add some border to the post, so you can tell for each post where it ends and where the next post start, as you can see. Let's leave it here, it's no problem if we have it. And now we have, as you can see, everything is great. We have let's go to our, this is our view of item. Let's go to our main view, and let's add a padding bottom to it because it's very close to the next one. We can add this padding in many, we can add this padding in the text, but also you can add it in the main view. It will depend where you can use it. I think if we want to use smaller code, we could have used it with the text, but it's okay to use it here. So also you'll know that any place can add the padding, not just down. Now our code has finished, and this is our stories. Our stories, we need to have it in our scroll. When we scroll down, our stories is still there, so we need to make it move with the flat list. So first let's import our stories where we have our posts, and in the flat list we go there, and in the flat list there is a list header component where we can put a component to be in the top of the flat list. Let's write it above, and let's write it, and let's pass our users which have the stories. It's our stories, and we save. Now as you can see, when we scroll down, our stories scroll down with us, and this one is the one that imported as app.js, so we have to just go and remove it, and we just save and also remove the import. Now our component is ready. When we scroll down, our scroll is working with the stories also, and our stories also scroll with the, you can scroll horizontally. Now let's remove the vertical indicator. Great. Now let's go delete our data files that we used to check the data, and the post data file. Now let's go back to look our code. Everything is great. Our component, everything is fine, and we have 3 components for this screen, and the app.js only importing the component. Our icons working fine, our scrolls working fine, our data is right, and everything is great. You can check also after you finish any app, you can check also for any mistakes. Normally there will be 1 or 2 mistakes with the style. Now after finishing the code, let's try to run the code in Android emulator. So let me just start my Android emulator. I'm using Android emulator and not Android Studio because I'm using MacBook with M1 chip, so this is the only emulator working now. And I haven't checked the Android Studio lately, but it has an update, and it should be supporting ARM64, but it didn't work with me, so I continued with this till I will check and work it there. And if I work it there, I will make a video for it. Now I'm running my code for Android, and let's see. It may take time for the first time. If you have any issue or any suggestion, you can write it in the comment or send it to me. Also, if you think the video is good, or you had it was helpful for you, you can give a like to the video, and also you may subscribe for support. Now our build is successful, and now the app is working, everything is loading, and now everything is working fine. But if you can notice that our icons, it's working, but it is not working right. So let's open let's first check here. Okay, everything is here is good. Now let's open our React Native. No, let's search for React Native vector icons, and search for the package name for vector icons. You will find it in Google, probably the first or the second result, and it is here. The first to be this one, first result. We'll go down, and let's check for Android installation. As you can see, it only have one line to edit to add this to build Gradle that's in Android app build Gradle. So just copy it, and we go to our Visual Studio Code, Android app build Gradle, and let's add it here in the top, and let's save. As you can see, the other one is for to customization, we don't need that, and the rest is manual option. So let's rerun our application on Android, and let's see if it will work. Now our app is refreshing on Android, build successful, and our icon are working fine. Even so, we didn't look to the Android while doing the design, but it became responsive because we used width and height, which we got from the dimensions of the device. So without looking to the Android Studio while coding, we made a screen that is perfect for Android and iOS. This is responsive because of the width and height, as we mentioned. Now if you think this video is helpful, give it a like, also subscribe for support, and don't forget to check the links in the details.